Hey guys, I was just coming up this track and thought I'd stop off and go through my tyre sizes and why I chose the tyre size I did. I've taken it on some pretty rocky, sharp stuff through the Flinders Ranges, which is notorious for that, on quite low PSI, so I was riding the sidewalls and I've had zero problems on this tyre. So if you're new to four-wheel driving or just got a new four-wheel drive and are thinking of upgrading your tyres and want to have a second opinion, these are my thoughts on what I did. So the Prado came with 265 65 17s, which is basically this. That's the standard stock rim. It had some all-terrains on it, and I was looking at, should I go hectic and get some mud terrains, or should I upgrade my wheel size? I did a bunch of research. I spoke to the tyre guys, and these were sort of the things I found out. So when you got the mud terrains, you get extra noise and extra weight typically. The tyre itself is generally heavier, but you do get better side biters here and better, the ply in the sidewall is stronger, so you don't get staked as much. And then with the all-terrains, you get a bit of a lighter tyre, and then and you get lower noise, but you have technically a weaker tyre because you have less plies on the side. And fuel economy is another thing. You not just because of the weight, but because of the tread pattern itself, is another thing that factors in. So I was going to either stick with the same size tyre and go on mud terrain, get a good quality tyre, or upgrade the tyre and stick with the all-terrains. And this was sort of my thought process on what to do. Now I've written some of this stuff down, so it helps me out because I can't remember it all off the top of my head. So I had a 30.6 inch tyre, or a 265 65 17, and I upgraded to a 265 70 17, or 31.6 inch, and they have a 10.4 tread width on them, these tyres. Now that was for the 265 65 17, it's 46.9 pounds or 21.2 kilograms. For the 265 70 R17, or 31.6 inch, it's 51 pounds and 23.1 kilograms. Now, if you go to the mud terrains, the 265 65 17s, or the 30.6s, are 53.2 pounds and 24.13 kilos. And for the 265 70 R17s, or the 31.6 inch tyres, the mud terrains are 56.4 pounds or 25.5 kilograms. This is just the Geolanders, so take that with a grain of salt. Every brand's going to vary with the exact poundage or kilogram, but it just shows you, as part of the decision making, how much weight you're actually putting on the tyre, and to get that better grip. If you put extra weight on the tyre, you need to add more torque or more horsepower to the turn, almost like when you get into a truck, you get a bigger steering wheel or a bus because it makes it easier to turn the wheel. So on the outside, it makes it easier to turn the small point. In a tyre, it's reverse. As the wheel gets bigger, the small point, it gets more difficult to turn the bigger wheel. It's basically an exact reverse. So if you make the wheel smaller, it's easier to turn the wheel. If you make the wheel bigger, it's harder to turn the wheel. And then if you add more weight to the outside, where most of the weight is on the tyre when you get a mud terrain, or any sort of tyre, it's towards the outside, it's even harder to turn that wheel because you're pushing that mass, you're trying to rotate that mass. So every kilo or pound that you have on the outside of your tyre is going to make your engine more difficult. And then same with that same leverage, when you're trying to stop, the tyre's moving and the brake, there's a ratio, right, between the disc rotor and the outside of the tyre. The bigger that ratio is, the harder it is and the hotter the brake will get to stop the car. Also, the tire does less rotations, so the brake is acting on less amount of wheel for more distance, if that makes sense. So it only acts on, say, one turn for, you know, 3 meters of travel, whereas this is an extreme, it'll act on 2 turns for 3 meters of travel with a smaller wheel, right? So you can see how that same brake disc can cool off better, and there's more friction because there's more turns with that. So I hope you can kind of get that, that when you do upgrade, it affects your braking, it affects how much power you can deliver to the ground, all of that sort of stuff. I hope I explained that well. Let me know in the comments if I didn't, or if you didn't understand it. I'll try fill it out in the comments, see how we go. All right. So my thinking was, you know, I do a lot of long Ks. Like if on the highway, even if I'm going out back, it'll be mainly highway driving. And even if I'm going forward driving, even just to get there, I'm mainly highway driving. So fuel economy was more important to me. But I also wanted that bit of clearance that you get from having a bit of tire size, axle clearance. So I went with the all-terrain and upper size. And that gave me bigger clearance. It kept me on a lower noise. It kept me on better fuel efficiency because it was a lighter tire. It was even lighter than the mud terrain of the smaller tire. And better fuel efficiency because of the tread type. The only thing I didn't get is better sidewalls and more plies in the tire. So I think I got the best deal by sticking with the all-terrain. And to be honest, I've taken it on some pretty rocky, sharp stuff through the Flinders Ranges, which is notorious for that, on quite low PSI. So I was riding the sidewalls and I've had 0 problems on this tire at the moment. I think the tire's done 30 or 40,000 Ks by now, and you can probably see, let's have a look. You know, I've got no chipping. Let's see, is there any chips at all? There's a little crack and sidewall damage. I mean, on this particular one, I don't know, I do rotate them every 10,000, so I'm not exactly sure, but they're in pretty good nick for some of the stuff that I've done. So I'm pretty happy with this choice of tyre, and they're holding pretty well because of the rotation. But yeah, I can't see a single like damaged lug at all yet. I mean, there's a rock in there, that's pretty jammed in, but everything seems, I don't know, leave me a comment if you reckon you saw damage there. Let's go around to this tyre, check it as well. But yeah, it's all still holding up pretty well for the amount of rock crawling I did in there. And I got the extra clearance. I do have a 2-inch lift, 50mm lift on it, and a GVM. But then with the bigger tyre, it is, you just have that extra bit of clearance. Like, I don't know, I'll try to show you. I don't know if you can see that or not. Got my camera handle a bit in the way. But yeah, what do I have there? Probably 300mm, a good foot under that axle at the moment, which is pretty good. So yeah, I would say the mud terrains, it's really got to be a car that you use dedicated to forward driving. And to be honest, even if you do a lot of forward driving, you do a lot of highway driving too. You see so many people with, you know, crazy tires, just city driving all the time, and an all-terrain, a good all-terrain will really, it'll get you pretty far. I know, like in actual mud, because I've done it before. I've gone through mud when I used to work in the mines. I've gone through mud on the way to the mining sites to get in and out of work, and I passed multiple bogged four-wheel drives. So often it's more the user rather than the vehicle itself, I would say. When it comes to mud, you just gotta keep them revs up, keep that momentum going, flick that mud out. And sand as well. I've done stuff I used to have a Commodore, and I could take it anywhere that a four-wheel drive could go. So you don't need all the gear. And I think keeping fuel economy, it'll get you to more places, get you further for cheaper, which means you'll get out more often. And it's still a completely capable tyre, as you'll see in the footage, to do some pretty gnarly shit as well. So I did consider getting another set of rims, like a 16 or 15 rim, and putting some bigger tires on with mud terrains, or like they have now like hybrid all terrains that are half a mud, half a yeah, you can see how there's these straight lines here. Those straight lines are better for road driving, and when you get more like crossing patterns through that tire, it is better for mud and for gripping to rock and stuff like that. And getting some other ones, because I've got a compressor at home and I've got a rattle gun, and I could just pop all my tires off and put different ones on and then head out forward driving. But really, that's when I do the most Ks. So it's really, I want to carry 5 spare tires all the way till I get there, which means I'd be carrying extra weight. It's just not realistic. So I'm pretty happy at the moment with these pretty road style all terrains. Because of the fuel economy. I know the fuel economy is getting worse anyway, because I've got a massive awning and I've lifted it and all the other stuff I've done to it. The fuel economy's dropped anyway, but putting a heavier, bigger tire on, I think is just going to make it way worse. Now, I didn't go a fatter tire either, so I'm 10 inches wide, or it's a 265 wide tire. That's the tread width, because you can run into various problems, like the tire backing out on the edge here. There's not much clearance as it is, especially when you start springing up and down and different forces start acting on the tire. So the wider you go, then you start after thinking about having offsets on your rims. And if you have offsets, that gets even worse because of how the steering works. You're going around in an arc, right? So if you push it out, that arc gets bigger, and so then that throws the wheel further around in the arc, throwing it closer in here. So then you have to do panel modifications and all of that. So, and the evidence that I've researched suggests that having the pizza cutter wheels, so the thinner wheels, when you air down and all of that, the grip stays the same. Similar tread to ground ratio. So let's say you get a wider tire and stay at the smaller size and get like a nice fat chunky tire, which looks nice, or you get a slightly taller tire or upgrade the inches without going wider. The way that the tread pattern works, you get a very similar footprint to the ground. So the things I love the most about my tyres are that they're low noise. When we're going 110 k's an hour, I can still hear the music. Everything under the car is under 70 decibels. I measure it on my watch, which is a safe listening range for kids. So with road noise and then an audio book or something or movie on, turned up to where everyone can hear it, under 70 decibels, which is, if you're doing long trips, is perfectly good. They're super grippy. Every four-wheel drive track I've been on, and I've been on the most difficult ones at four-wheel drive parks. I've been through the Bendelby Ranges, through Arkaroola, all of that, through Ottaway National Park in Victoria, all those sorts of things. They perform perfectly fine. And yeah, the ground clearance every single time has been great. Like getting that one size up in the sand comes super handy, because you can bottom out pretty quickly in sand. Same with mud, and going over rock ledges and all of that, just having that extra bit of ground clearance has been super awesome. I know the 2-inch lift is good, but if I was on a smaller tire, I'd be losing, half an inch or whatever. So having the extra ground clearance, so that when you air down, you've got that little bit extra, is really, really handy. I'm pretty impressed with these tyres. These are the Geolander ATs, Geo15s, I think they're called. I've done 40,000 Ks on them, which is, you know, quite a bit. You know, you'd want a tyre to last 80 Ks, so this would be roughly half their life at 40,000 Ks. And they still got heaps of tread. I do rotate them, you know, very regularly, every 10,000, but I have done quite a bit of off-roading on them, and they're handling really well. When I brake and when I've been in wet weather, it's been fine. I've slipped once a little bit. I was towing the trailer and I sort of drifted on some really loose gravel, but I was going pretty fast and it was a bit of a corner and I just felt the back end slipping out. So there is that. But if I'd have lowered my pressure a little bit, I think I was still on road pressure and I was just gonna, you know, when you come off a road, you're at road speed, you're at road pressure, and then you hit the dirt and you got the trailer and everything, and you just got to adjust, and that's the only time I've slipped on them. But they've been really grippy, you know, on rocks, on really steep inclines, everything. I've been really happy with them. So those are the reasons why I love the upgrade that I did to the slightly bigger tyre, but keeping them with an all-terrain rather than a mud terrain. But what do you guys think, and what have you done? Let me know in the comments, and hopefully this helps make up your mind a little bit. I know it's a bit of a technical one. Maybe I can film it a bit better, cut it down in the edit, see how we go. All right, cheers guys, I'll see you on the next one. Catch ya.